مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and welcome inshallah ta'ala to a new series that we've actually brought, and this is going to be Ihsan Cast Season 2, and today I've got a really special guest for yourselves. This is Shaykh Maan Al Dabbagh, who is a PhD student at the University of Cambridge, but perhaps more importantly than that, he is from the family of Shaykh Sayyid Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki rahmatullah alayhi. And for those people who might not know about Shaykh Sayyid Muhammad Alawi, he's known to be by some as one of the greatest scholars of the 20th century, but also one of the greatest Sufis of the 20th century as well, and someone whose works and stories and contribution to this ummah has been etched in history, in fact. And it was interesting because I was just saying to Shaykh Maan that, on the way he picked me up, and we were just talking about the fact that, very, very few people know about these kind of men, because traditionally when we think about the Tasawwuf, or we think about Sufis, or whenever we think about pious people, straight away what comes to our mind is they're people of the past. They're people who are in the history books, That's what we think of. We don't think of people that are real life living people that we've got today. And subhanAllah, Shaykh Sayyid Muhammad Alawi, he only passed away in 2004. So this is only 15 or 16 years ago that he passed away. So we're not talking about someone that is long in the history books or anyone like that. And we're also not talking about someone who we don't have very specific personal accounts from. And equally more importantly, I think, is the fact that, his legacy lives on through his students up till today. He has, alhamdulillah, numerous students throughout the world, and his books are some of the most recognized books in the world, as well. Just in terms of, the seerah and the shama'il of the Prophet ﷺ are known to be, two of the best works as introductions for people to really get a connection with the Prophet ﷺ. So inshallah ta'ala, I'm gonna with Shaykh Maan, who's from the family of Sayyid Muhammad Alawi, and what we're going to do today is just discuss a few things about the Shaykh's life. First of all, to give inspiration to people that they can take, because listening to someone speak about great men and their works and their efforts is fantastic. But what we were talking about in the car, subhanallah, was his personal connection with people, his relationship with people, how he used to make every single person feel special. And that prophetic quality and that prophetic character that he displayed in his life is really something which many people are saying that they feel is lost within Islam and is lost within the Muslims. So this will be I do think it will be a really nice insight for yourselves to listen to, to just hear about someone like Shaykh Sayyid Muhammad Alawi rahmatullah alayhi. So inshallah, Shaykh Maan, why don't we not just start from the beginning in terms of the Shaykh's family, his lineage, and his own upbringing, so to speak.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal-mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First of all, thank you so much for this invitation. It's a great pleasure to have you first in Cambridge, and also to discuss and to talk about such a great personality like the Sayyid Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki rahmatullah alayhi. Sayyid Muhammad family, as you may know, he come from a Sharif family, Hassani Sharif family, from the sons of Sayyidina al-Hassan bin Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And what is special about the family, it's a family known as a scholarly family for generations and generations. And by the way, the title Maliki comes from the madhab itself. So it's not from, they are originally al-Hassani, and they are, by the way, they come from a Dabbagh family. And then they got the Maliki name because his grandfathers, his family basically, they were usually holding the the post of the Maliki judge in Mecca,
Okay.
and the ifta of the Maliki madhab, and from this they took the name Maliki. So he's definitely, rahimahullah, he was a scholar. His father, Sayyid Alawi bin Abbas, was a scholar. His grandfather, Sayyid Abbas bin Abdul Aziz Maliki, was a scholar and a teacher. All of them teachers, khatib and imams in Haram. And then Sayyid Abdul Aziz, also the great grandfather of Sayyid Muhammad. So all the family, and even before that, all of them, they were great imams, muftis and qadis of the Maliki madhab. As you know, in the Haram in Mecca, and this is one of the greatest virtues, I would say, in Mecca, especially for as a teaching or as a place of learning, that students of knowledge, they were exposed to the different madhab, all the 4 madhabs of the Sunni madhabs. And when you go into the Haram, you can have a fatwa from 4 madhabs at one instance, and definitely that help students of knowledge to be exposed to different, kind of scholarship and opinion. And so the family come from that tradition. That's why they were called Maliki family. So he started studying definitely with his father, Sayyid Alawi bin Abbas al-Maliki rahimahullah ta'ala, who passed away in 1971. And he was one of the greatest, no doubt, scholars of Haram, especially in Hadith. He did memorize the Quran and studied the basics with his father. And then his father tried to kind of push him to study with the scholars in the Haram. And Mecca is a place at what many Muslims would come and gather in Hajj and Umrah. And so whenever there is a scholar who would visit Mecca at that time, then Sayyid Alawi would ask his son to go and study with that scholar, meet him and take ijazah from him. So Sayyid Muhammad was connected to definitely more than 300 scholars, no doubt, and probably more than this. And his asanid, so which is basically the connections to different disciplines of knowledge, are published in 3 big volumes. So he is well connected to many scholars, rahimahullah. So he started by studying with his father, and then with the scholars of Haram, and visiting a scholar. And he memorized Quran, and he focused on, again, as the students of knowledge would start by focusing on the basics in all the disciplines and go deeper and deeper. And then I think out of the influence of the environment of the Haramain, he focused on Hadith, and probably this is also the focus of his father, rahimahullah ta'ala. So he specialized and focused more into Hadith.
Do you think his specialization of Hadith was linked in any way to the Maliki madhab, in terms of the Maliki madhab being in particular a school of Hadith, in terms of known to be the Ahl al-Hadith rather than Ahl al-Ra'i?
Probably this is the reason, but to be honest, Hijaz was known since centuries as a main center for Hadith. And if you look at 17th, 18th, 16th centuries, it was known as a center of Hadith. And one of the main reasons that let people come to Mecca and Medina, Haramain, to study, rather than definitely doing Umrah and Ziyarah and other things, is to study Hadith and Tasawwuf. So it was the main center of Hadith and Tasawwuf. So this is the tradition or the school of the Hijaz and Mecca and Medina. The influence of Hadith is so heavy on them.
So just, following on from that in terms of his scholarly works, I was just talking to you before about the fact that he had works for all levels. Did you see or did the Shaykh ever mention to you the reasoning, or did you hear about the reasoning as to why he would do such a thing? Because I was speaking to you about one of the very first books that I ever read of the Honourable Sayyid was Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Insan al-Kamil, which has been translated into English actually, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Perfect Man. And it's one of the best books. I'd advise people to purchase it and to definitely read it. But that's obviously for even just average person can pick it up. And then obviously he has deeper and deeper works, like you mentioned, other topics on the subject. Was there a reason for this? connecting with just a regular person as well as connecting with the ulama in terms of his scholarship?
I think what influenced Sayyid Muhammad, probably he did not say directly anything to me, to be honest, but looking at his life, he was interacting mainly with two type of, probably more, but I mean the main, he was like a very important social figure in Mecca and Medina. I mean, into the family things, or all the social gatherings, and he was interacting also with student of knowledge. So student of knowledge would understand the language of the scholarly kind of books. And he found out probably that in order to let other people, other than students of knowledge, to get access to the knowledge, he needs to simplify things for them. And that's why even if we look at his, by the way, works, it is divided. Some of them are clearly directed to students of knowledge, very clearly. And some of them, no, it's kind of, again, to open, to lay the ground for people to have access to the tradition as a way through to the tradition. And then we have the other thing, which is his personal interest, which is the thing around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And by the way, probably the published work around 80, but there is around more than 100 manuscripts. So hopefully, inshallah, his sons and other students work on them to publish them.
So just, reconnecting with this idea of him connecting people with the Prophet ﷺ and connecting people back with the Prophet ﷺ. Of course, in the time that he was living in, there was a bit of turmoil in terms of these issues being brought up and these issues being spread regarding kind of overpraising the Prophet ﷺ or showing the Prophet ﷺ too much respect, etc., etc. And we always saw the Shaykh as being a real staunch defender of the Ahl Sunnah, and in terms of this defense of praising the Prophet ﷺ. Where do you think, I mean, of course that comes from his family and from being the family of the Prophet ﷺ, but in terms of in your sittings with him and in the gatherings with him that you would go under, was it something that was it a reaction to that, or was this just something that this was the tradition that he was from? Was this respect and reverence of the Prophet ﷺ?
I think it was clearly, if we look at his chains of transmission in all types of knowledge, that it was full of a lot of the people who, for example, Sayyid Alawi, he learned from his father, one of the great teachers of Sayyid Alawi, so his father, Shaykh Yusuf al-Nabhani, who wrote on the Prophet ﷺ, on Shama'il, in many aspects, on Ziyarah, on Salawat, so that was kind of the tradition definitely in Hijaz, as it was the case in most of the parts of the Islamic world. But I would say he was a little bit quite took it as a mission for him to defend, because I think he saw that the scholarly tradition, at least around in Mecca, and probably started to deviate from the tradition that he knew, and he felt it is very dangerous for the people of knowledge not to be connected to the Prophet ﷺ, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet ﷺ as a mercy for the whole universe. And not only this, he could send angels to say that there is God and believe in God and with a miracle, but he sent a human being, and he asked us to reach him through the Prophet ﷺ. So he saw that this connection is basically will keep the ummah away from Allah, not only from the Prophet, because he's the main door to the Prophet, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So we've covered, alhamdulillah, the kind of first part which we wanted to talk about was his scholarly contributions and his scholarly background as well in terms of his family. But just moving on to tasawwuf, and this is a really, really important point, because what a lot of people don't kind of understand today, in today's day and age, is this fact that tasawwuf was always linked with Islam. It was nothing separate, it's not a separate entity. it's not something that came after the tradition. It was always linked very, very strongly with the tradition. Sayyid Muhammad was, I'm a real man of tasawwuf, but just in terms of his character and his meeting with people, how did you find him in just his day-to-day interactions with people?
Subhanallah, I think this is kind of the real way to know the person through.
Because this is why I asked about tasawwuf, because there's a difference between someone saying very spiritual things, and then there's a difference between the person actually acting in a spiritual way. Really taking ihsan as a way of purifying themselves and showing that to others through their character and their akhlaq. I just wondered.
Subhanallah. Yeah, just on the first part, I forgot to mention that he traveled to a lot of places around the world to study with mashayikh, especially after his father passed away, rahimahullah ta'ala. He went to Pakistan, to Morocco, to Syria, to many different places to study with. About the personal part of his life, to be honest, first of all, if we look at, he used to have resident students who he used to take care of them. So they study, basically they live, study for free. To be honest, he spent on them. The relationship with his students is so close to the level the students call him daddy. They don't call him our sheikh, or they call him like, Abu Sayyid, which is in our slang like my father. And he used to take care of them and all their personal aspects. When somebody getting into the time of marriage, some of them even, he will try to get the fund for them to get married. He will by himself go and ask for them. He sent people to study abroad, and he arranged scholarship for them. And the other part, which is he was very close to his students. Probably I mentioned to you before that he used to know each one when does he attend the lesson. So he used to have a daily lessons, and some of them used just to attend, for example, on Wednesdays or Thursdays or whatever. So he used to know each one when the person used to attend, and if he missed one of them, he would call them and check if they are fine and if they have anything. Hopefully they are not, for example, ill, or if he found that somebody ill, he would go and visit him. And with his students, he will take few of the students, that they will go and visit that person. Also, he used to spend a lot of his time, if we look at his daily schedule, with the students. And he used to take them into his kind of social activities. So he would rotate, mashallah, because he had many students. He would rotate the students. He has a very busy schedules and visits, and some of them are social and some of them. So he would take people with him for many different reasons. For them to learn, because usually there are discussions, scholarly discussions, but also for them to get experience of the different aspects of the social life in a sense. So he was very very humble, very kind, very he took care of many of the personal aspects of the people. He used to ask about their families, and if there is a way for him to intervene. He helped many in their, as I say, family problems, and he was probably one of the first persons to be approached to solve these things. So subhanallah, it was an interesting part of his life.
It's incredible just thinking about it, because such an amazing scholar, and yet he had that personal connection with every single person that he would meet. And it's very similar to the Prophet ﷺ, and the fact that the Prophet ﷺ would make every single person feel close to them. And it's interesting because how you have in Arabic you have your sahib, and then you have your sadiqa, your friend, and then your sahib is your close companion. And it's interesting because obviously a companion is called a sahabi. And it's interesting because I was thinking about this the other day, thinking that You know, there were some people who'd only met the Prophet ﷺ for a few moments, but are still regarded as a Sahabi, as someone who is ranked as a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. And that was just because of the greatness of the Prophet ﷺ, and even just that small amount of time that the Prophet ﷺ would have with them would make them feel as if they are close to them. You know, this was something that the Prophet ﷺ had with him, is that even if you had just met him for a moment, you felt as if you were the most important person in the world to him. And as, you know, Shaykh Maan was just talking about Sayyid Muhammad, I mean, we just see that character where you have someone who's going to the students, and, you know, so many students coming, hundreds of students coming in every day, in and out, and personally going up to each and every one of them, asking them how they are, asking them, oh, you were off the other day, is there a reason for that, were you sick? If the person's sick, personally going, not even just over the phone, personally going to that student's house to find if they're okay. You know, subhanAllah, just thinking about that connection back to the Prophet ﷺ, and even the ways that the Prophet ﷺ would do things, he's reviving those and keeping those intact.
Yeah, one of the ways he used to, especially if the first person, if he used to see somebody for the first time, he would ask him about his family, and then Sayyid had a great knowledge about genealogy, and so he would, and he used to know a lot of people. So immediately he would make connection with people he know with that person to feel that he's so close. I remember also once some of his students went to Medina, and on the way they had an accident. They were in a bus, and few of them, rahimahumullah, passed away. So he said that if you don't, for all the people around him, if they don't deal with them as if they were my sons, I would be really, angry. So he would expect people to come and, for aza, condolence to, and if they didn't come, then he would be a little bit, kind of angry, because he said that they are my sons, basically.
So just wanting to go on to his daily routine or his daily life, how would he spend, say, his mornings, his afternoons, his evenings? How would he spend that time? Because obviously, you mentioned his time with the students, his time with his family, his time to write his books. Could you give us a bit of an insight into how he would handle all those? And obviously, he's under a lot of pressure as well, because he's a senior imam, a senior scholar as well. So how did he cope with all of that and deal with everything, and how was his daily routine?
He's rahimahullah, he was very, very, very well organized person, and everyone around him would know that. I mean, there are people, the way he distributed the things around him, he was very organized. If you want quickly to speak about his daily schedule in a normal day, usually he wake up around 3 a.m, so just before Fajr, around 2 hours, probably 1.5 hours, and then he would go to his madrasa, which is attached to the house, and he would wake up students, so to do for Qiyam al-Layl and Adhkar of Qiyam al-Layl, and then they would pray Fajr, and after Fajr they will stay till the time of sunrise, also in dhikr, and after that probably having a quick nap or rest, and after that these daily durus or his teaching would start in the morning immediately till just before dhuhr time, and his students will be studying with other teachers, but usually that time also it's a time if somebody wants to come and meet him, usually he meet people around that time, and then they pray dhuhr and dhikr again after dhuhr, short dhikr, and then lunch time and a quick also break, and then again they go for praying Asr, and after Asr sometimes teaching, sometimes also people visiting, and in many occasions also he would write at that time after Asr, and then that would continue between teaching, writing, and up to Maghrib time, and then after Maghrib is the kind of the big his big teachings session, which is open for everyone. The teachings before only for resident students, so to which everyone would come, and most of the people who wants to meet him usually come at Maghrib time. Then he will do the main teaching few books. After that, Salat al-Isha. After Salat al-Isha, he would stay a little bit if there are guests, and then he will meet them. And around 9 p.m. he would go to his house to stay with the family, and he would stay up to 12. Then he would sleep. So during these 3 hours, he spent these 3 hours with the family. And also he used to write during these times, and probably he would kind of let some of his family members to contribute. So he would ask them, bring that book and bring that book, and he would writing and ask them to read a few things for him, and he used to write. Sleep at around 12 and then wake up again around 3 a.m. So this is kind of his daily routine and schedule.
SubhanAllah. This is incredible just thinking about it in terms of, we would think, where's the sleep? To have such a busy schedule and, to get very, very little sleep, and to do that continuously for the number of years he did that is, when we talk about servants of the religion and people doing khidmah of the deen and really supporting the religion, Alawi al-Maliki rahmatullah alayhi, just it's incredible just how much devotion and dedication he gives to the faith and to the religion. Absolutely amazing to see. So any personal stories that you kind of, because the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi passed away, are there any stories which always come back to you, like whenever someone talks about Sayyid Muhammad, do you ever have any stories that just come to your mind that you just think, subhanallah, those were the best moments?
To be honest, there are many, but one of the first, I would say, things that would come to my mind, I remember he was in Morocco, and I asked him if I can join. I haven't been to Morocco, and a lot of my family spent a lot of time in Morocco, for generations before coming back to Hijaz. So I wanted to visit kind of to see the heritage of the family in Morocco. And so I went, and he was already in Morocco. And I remember that probably I arrived at Fez around 1 a.m. at night. And he was, definitely for the whole day in visiting scholars and doing a lot of things. When I arrived at the hotel, I found him waiting for me in the reception, he did not want me to come without greeting him. So he was waiting for me, and he was a bit tired. He was a little bit asleep, but he didn't want to sleep before greeting me, and he found it also not part of his etiquette to wait for me in the room. So he waited for me in the lobby, in the reception, so that one of the moments, I'm like his basically his son, and then he was subhanallah waiting for me. And subhanallah, many things, to be honest. I remember when he used to, for example, I remember the first time when I met him, kind of in a very close meeting, and then he had a kind of jalali and haiba. When you see him, you feel him as a great scholar, and he was very, very sweethearted. So he felt that I was a little bit. So he started to to say jokes with me, and just to make things easy and just to make me to break the ice and to make me very comfortable, even about things subhanallah, trials and hardship that he went through. And if we listen to those stories, to be honest, we would be shocked. But then he was laughing that these are tests, and he was taking them so easy, rahimahullah.
And just his obviously, just on a final note, was just his connection with the Hijaz. In terms of he was a defender of the faith and a defender of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and a defender of upkeeping the honor of the Prophet ﷺ. But at that time, it must have been quite difficult for him in those circumstances. In terms of the people around him, and in terms of the people around him, and also in terms of his own kind of sphere of people that he had, did you feel as if he had a really strong family and a really strong close-knit group who would help him through these times?
Definitely the family around him, they were around him closely throughout the difficulties that he went through, and also there were at least a few very influential people in Saudi Arabia who were also around him and supporting him. And I think also this is part of the thing that helped him to kind of to continue in his way. Especially, I have to mention his wife. May Allah protect her. She's still alive. I mean, definitely she took care of the family and raising the children. At a time, he needed to travel a lot and probably to be away for a long time. So definitely the close circle around him, especially at the time of difficulties, supported him and helped him a lot in his mission, no doubt.
It's I was thinking that because it's a very famous hadith of a narration of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, when a man comes to knock on the door of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, and he can hear Sayyidina Umar and his wife having an argument, and the man says, "Oh, I was thinking about coming, then I heard your wife shouting at you and complaining to you, etc., etc." And Sayyidina Umar was obviously under the time of Islam, it was the almost scholars would argue the most prosperous time of Islam in terms of the da'wah, the connection that people had with the religion. It was one of the best times. But it was interesting at that point because Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh said that when I've had a difficult day, when I've had a tough day, she is the one who gives me advice. I can only do what I can do because of the fact that I know at home, she's going to be there and she's going to be looking after the children and looking after all the affairs of the home, which allow me to do these other things.
Yeah.
And it was just, I was kind of alluding to it, is just that, subhanAllah, we never think of the families behind these great men, and especially the wives behind them who really give them that support, because like I was saying before, is they are under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, but it's family members, like you said, subhanAllah, like his wife, who understood that he's going abroad, understood that he's made it his mission to defend the Prophet ﷺ. He's made it his mission to spread the message of the Prophet ﷺ to as many people as possible, and therefore by understanding that, you make his life a little bit easier as well.
No doubt. And also, it's part of the culture for Arabs to have a lot of guests, and then even cooking and doing things for Sayyid Muhammad. As a scholar, he had a lot of as you expect, guests, and so she was part definitely of his life and his mission, no doubt.
And just kind of on a last point, as if there was one thing that you could, from all the years that you've taken from him, one point that you could mention to the younger generation or to young people regarding the life of the Sayyid Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki, rahmatullah alayhi, that you could advise people to implement into their lives, what would that be?
I think there are a few points, to be honest, but I would mention, probably I mentioned earlier, the way that he used to spend his time. He was very well organized. His schedule was very well organized, and the way he used to do many things, and sometimes, to be honest, at the same time. I attend an occasion while somebody is reading and he's commenting on the book, and he's at the same time, authoring a book, and somebody is writing and somebody is consulting him on something. So you can see how they used to have this is one thing. The other thing, I think that we all should have a very clear purpose in life. Once we have that clarity, as Sayyid, for example, that he would do everything that he can do just to achieve that purpose, and that would automatically, I would say, put priorities in his life. So everything would be around that main purpose. And the third is, which is probably one of the most important, again, once your main intention is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will open for you doors that you don't expect that they will be opened. And this is what happened, because it was easy for him to be a quiet teacher without defending anything and going into the controversial thing, at least from the perspective of some people. But he stuck to it, and he was doing that for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think that's why we are speaking about him now. Rahimahullah.
So, alhamdulillah, I hope you've found this beneficial. This was a really special time for myself, because like I said, the Honourable Sayyid, his works were some of the first works that I'd ever read, and his works were, many people even in the West, I guarantee you have read his books, and have read his work, in particular on Seerah and Shmail. And like I said, we always think of these men of being people of the past, but Sayyid Muhammad ibn Alawi was someone who was around, passed away in 2004. So there are always going to be men of God like that. There are always going to be people that devote their lives to the religion and their lives to the faith. And like I said, my advice would be, and I'm going to ask Shaykh Maan to give some passing advice as well, but I would say that reading about these men has been something that I've just found so beneficial, and men and women actually, and some of the best books I've read in terms of inspiration have not been big hefty fiqh books, on comparative fiqh between the four madhahib al-arba'a, etc. They've been works like just detailing biographies of the ulama, just detailing travellers' diaries of when they interacted with certain Sufis, or when they interacted with scholars, and that's something I would say is that get in contact and read about these amazing individuals, because the inspiration that they will give you in terms of a personal inspiration is something which you really can't take for granted. And tell me, Shaykh Maan, any kind of...
To be honest, I just echo what you have said. One of the best ways to be exposed to our tradition and to get inspired is to, as you said, to read about those people, and from different generations and different centuries. And we're going to see that we have great people in each single century and each single part of the Islamic world. We just need to look at them, and their stories and their scholarship is really inspiring, and will help us to, I think, to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be more inspired. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefit us from them all and their scholarship.
It's finally, there's a really interesting book that's been written, The Sublime Way, by Dr. Hisham Halier. And if you want to know more about Sayyid Muhammad ibn Alawi's life in terms of his biography, as well as kind of the tasawwuf aspect of it and the tariqah aspect of it, that would be a really amazing book that I would advise people to read as well. And if you are listening to this, I would also ask Al-Fatiha for the Shaykh as well, inshallah, for his contribution to the Ummah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all his efforts, and people like that are really what inspire every single person to try their best when it comes to religion, you know, because it's people like Shaykh Sayyid Muhammad Alawi al-Maliki who gave that time and gave that devotion to the faith to make it easier for us, you know, especially for common people like myself, just to read his works were some of the works which really inspired me, and some of the works which I thought, okay, I'm going to start reading more on the Shama'il of the Prophet ﷺ. So we can't ever underestimate the contribution that people like Sayyid Muhammad Alawi give. And inshallah, I'd just like to, you know, thank Shaykh Maan for giving his time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him and make his PhD easy for him, inshallah.
Ameen. Jazakumullah khair for the invitation, for coming along to Cambridge. It's my honor to be with you. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.